Hey guys, it's Joel from Hooks Photography. In this video I'll be going over the Canon EOS RP. Is it worth it in 2021? And who's this camera for? The EOS RP is over 2 years old now. When it came out it was $1,400. It wasn't very well received by reviewers. Main reasons for that was price point, face and eye detect did not work how they should and it was slow, and the lack of 24 frames per second in 1080p. Thankfully all those features have been resolved. Price point is now $999 and firmware updates were released by Canon that made the autofocus function how it should and brought 24 frames per second to 1080p. So if you purchase an RP in 2021, I would recommend downloading and updating the firmware as soon as possible. I'll leave a link below in the description on how to do that. It's pretty easy to do. The EOS RP has a 26.2 megapixel CMOS full frame sensor. It has a native ISO of 100 to 40,000 for stills and 25,600 for video. It shoots 5 to 6 frames per second and has dual pixel AF, full HD 1080p recording at 24, 30 and 60 FPS and 4K at 24 FPS. Has an OLED electronic viewfinder, an articulating rear LCD screen, has a USB-C for power and data, has an HDMI Type-C, microphone and headphone jacks. It's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capable, shoots RAW 14-bit color. It uses a LPE17 battery and Canon's newest RF mount, but it should be noted it can adapt any EF glass seamlessly using an adapter with no image degradation and one SD slot. I've had this camera for around 6 months now and I upgraded from the Canon 60D. It's hard to compare the two since the 60D is 10 years old for one, and it's an APS-C sensor. The RP is now 2 years old and it's a full frame sensor. I did notice a massive upgrade once I upgraded to the EOS RP. Most of it was quality of life, like EVF, stuff like that. There's definitely some image quality improvements as well. Coming from a standard DSLR and making your first mirrorless purchase, you'll get quality of life improvements that may make you feel like you're cheating a little bit. At least that's how it made me feel at first. The biggest contributor to that was the EVF. The EVF, or electronic viewfinder, in my opinion is a game changer. The EVF shows what your camera sensor sees after applying things like shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Whereas a traditional OVF, or optical viewfinder, basically it uses a prism mirror, so you're basically seeing what the lens is seeing. Autofocus. This is the EOS RP's strongest pro in my opinion. The autofocusing system with dual pixel AF, the same one that's on the EOS R, has 4,779 phase detect autofocusing points. Like, that's insane. Coming from my 60D, there was like 9. And you had to scroll and select every one. It was kind of ridiculous. I never knew what I was missing until I upgraded. Focusing modes on the RP include manual, 1 point, expand area, zone, spot, and my favorite, face and eye detect. Face and eye tracking works very fast and reliably in my portrait sessions. Another really cool feature of the RP that I really like is the touch and drag AF system. This makes focus selections much faster and easier when using the little dials on the camera. Good for low light. The RP has the ability to autofocus in situations by pumping in ISO to the sensor, grab focus, and then return to your original ISO to take your shot. Design. This camera is one of the smallest full frame bodies on the market, second only to the Sony A7C that just came out recently. Coming in at just over 1 pound, and that's including the battery. It's pretty nuts, this thing's pretty light. But at the same time, it doesn't feel really small or cheap in the hands with cheap plastic. Those with bigger hands or people who are using really big lenses, you can get this grip that they sell. It doesn't have any batteries in it, it's just like an extension grip. I'll put a link below. I really like the layout of the camera, like all the buttons feel like they're in the right place where they should be. You don't have to reach overly far for anything. And just the layout's overall good and I'm really comfortable with it. LCD screen. The 3-inch LCD touchscreen articulates so you can flip and rotate it to help you get lower angle shots without having to be like a contortionist or getting all down on the ground or something like that. It also comes in handy if you wanted to use the RP for a vlogging camera. The articulating screen for me is a must-have. I just can't imagine a camera without it. You can use the RP as a high-quality webcam, which is really cool. During these times of the COVID pandemic, many people are using video conferencing software to connect with friends and family, work from home, go to school from home, and the EOS RP can be used as a webcam. You just get a USB-C, download the program, and it's really as simple as that, and then you just configure it using whatever app you're using. I personally have used this for Discord and Twitch, and I always get complimented on the camera quality. My friends are like, damn, what camera do you have? It's such good quality. My webcam doesn't look like that. And I just tell them, I'm using my camera I use to take portraits and stuff with. I'm like, that's why. But honestly, it destroys any webcam out of the water. And if you have it, you might as well use it. If you've been using a webcam for that kind of thing, you might as well just plug your RP up and just, you can get a little tripod standing up and it works really great and I highly recommend using it. If If you are going to use the RP for a webcam, I would highly recommend getting one of those dummy batteries. Basically, it just goes in the camera and it's shaped like the battery, so it fits in there. And then you plug it into the wall, and that way the wall's feeding it power, and you don't have to keep swapping out batteries, for longer sessions. Now let's go through the cons, because not everything's good about this camera. One of these things is the dynamic range. The dynamic range of the RP is one of its weak points. This means when you're editing RAWs and post-processing, you will not be able to recover your highlights or push your shadows up or lift your shadows, as well as a camera, as let's say like some of the Sony cameras like the A7 III, which have really good dynamic range. You're not going to get that out of this camera. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is, because I haven't really ran into stuff like that. But I guess in emergencies, when you like have to have a photo, but you blew it out or underexposed it by a lot, you can't really recover that if it's extreme. But if you get somewhere close to your exposure, you'll be fine. Video. The 4K being cropped, having rolling shutter, and a weak autofocusing is a big con. For this camera, I would just recommend sticking to 1080p and not even bothering with 4K, because it's really not good. It'll be okay if you stick it on a tripod and just manually focus, but other than that, won't even bother. Don't try to use autofocusing with it, because it's garbage. The battery life. The battery they use in this camera is Canon's smaller battery, the LPE17. This battery is only rated in the RP for 250 shots. I've gotten close to double that on portrait shoots. The thing is, don't leave your camera on when you're walking to find a location or scouting spots or fixing things, setting up tripods, setting up lights. Just turn your camera off when you're doing that, and it'll squeeze some extra life out of that battery. Even still, I would recommend carrying a couple extra batteries with you. No image stabilization. This camera has no in-body stabilization, and you can get lenses with IS, but it won't compare it to like an R5 or an R6 with in-body stabilization and lens stabilization. If stabilization is really important to you, I wouldn't really recommend this camera. SD. The RP only has one SD, which isn't a big deal for me. Let's say someone who does wedding photography. You don't really want a camera with one SD card slot. You want that camera with two, that way you can have redundant or backup memory just in case one SD card slot fails on you. Who's this camera for and would I recommend it? This camera, in my opinion, is for those of you who want a affordable full-frame camera for photography. I would recommend it to portrait and landscape photographers. I wouldn't recommend it to people who are more interested in doing more serious video work with 4K or sports photographers. 4K is just not good enough for that, and the frames per second, I guess it could be done, but you'd really want a camera with more than 5 FPS for stills. Overall, I don't regret my purchase, and I really enjoy using this camera. I've gotten some great results with it so far, and in the end, that's the most important part. If mine somehow got damaged or stolen, I would consider replacing it with another RP. I'll put up some images that I've taken with this camera so far since I've had it. That way you can just, see the type of images you could expect out of this camera. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you want to see a behind the scenes portrait POV style shoot, then I'll have that in the link below for you. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for stopping by.